Welcome to AstroChat with Anne Sundell, Kimberly Williams, and Monica Anna. We are three professional astrologers living in three separate countries, coming together every new and full moon to share our 3 points of view on astrology. Whether you enjoy deep dives into the current transits or you are just beginning to learn about astrology for the first time, there is a place for you here. All that is required is an appreciation for astrology, along with respect for the various traditions within it. So grab a mug of coffee, your favorite cup of tea, or any other beverage of your choice, and join us for a chat on the astrology of the next 2 weeks. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our AstroChat podcast. Today, it is myself, Kimberly Williams. Monica Anna and Anne Sundell sadly cannot be with us today. Wishing them both good tidings, happy new moon energy. And I hope that you've got your cup of tea, beverage of your choice, and are settled in for a review and a chat about this month's new moon in Cancer. We're looking at a new moon in Cancer happening on July 5th. It will be at 14 degrees of Cancer. And here in the Central Time Zone, that's at 5:57 in the evening. Over across the pond in England, I think that puts us at 11:57 at night. And in Finland, it'll be the following morning on July 6th at 1:57 a.m. We're going to be looking today not only at the new moon energies coming in, but also what's happening in the 2 weeks between the new and the full moon. Our next full moon will be on the 21st. And that will be an exciting episode we do about the second full moon in Capricorn that we have in a row. Not a very common occurrence. So let's take a moment to look at our chart and talk about what is happening in terms of the general big picture of transits from the 5th to the 21st of July. So here's a chart that I have pulled up for the occasion. And let's just recap and remember that at the very end of June, on the 29th of June, Saturn went retrograde at 19 degrees of Pisces. So we're still feeling that energy as we start off the new month. Saturn will be retrograde all throughout July. In fact, it'll be retrograde until November of this year. Just a few days after that, on the 2nd, Neptune followed suit by also going retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces, and it will stay in its retrograde motion until December, till the end of the year. At the same time, we're dealing with that Neptune going retrograde. We also had a wonderful ingress of Mercury entering the sign of Leo on July 2nd. Soon thereafter, if we move forward to the 11th of July, Mercury will be accompanied by Venus shifting into that Leo sign. About the middle of the month, on the 15th to the 16th of July, Mars will have moved further along in its transit through Taurus and will be conjunct the slow-moving planet Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. If that is something that is a placement significant in your chart, you might want to pay attention to that. Later on the 17th of July, Mercury, still transiting through Leo, is going to be at 21 degrees of Leo, and this is where it enters its pre-shadow. If you are familiar and work with Mercury retrogrades, you may be aware that not only do we have 3 weeks of Mercury retrograde coming up in August, but about 3 weeks before and 3 weeks after, give or take, Mercury will travel in direct motion through those same degrees. So we call that the pre and the post shadow. So we may start to feel some foreshadowing energies of what that retrograde is going to feel like from the 17th of the month until it actually goes retrograde in August. On the 20th, as we're getting close to our end of our time period here, on the 20th of July, Mars will have moved all the way through Taurus and enter the sign of Gemini, putting it pretty close to contact with that Jupiter energy that's hanging out right now at 9 degrees of Gemini. And of course, on the 21st, we will have our full moon in the sign of Capricorn. And I want to just point out that within 24 hours of that full moon, on the 22nd, we will have the sun's annual movement entering the sign of Leo, which will be our second full moon in a row in Capricorn, happening within 24 hours of the sun's shifting signs. We'll be talking about that a lot, I imagine, in our next podcast. All right, so before we unpack what does all this mean and actually look at some of those aspects, let's just back up for a minute and talk about the energy in general of having a new moon in Cancer. This is an annual occurrence, and if you go back in our archives, you're going to find some prior episodes where we've talked about the annual new moon in Cancer. But here's a bit information to think about as we step into this lovely lunar month. Cancer in general is a sign that we associate with the idea of nourishing and nourishment. What is it that feeds not only your body, but what is it that feeds your soul? Its primary associations happen to be about home, family, or as I like to think of it, the home and the hearth, where we feel grounded and safe and secure. A lot of times, the theme of Cancer brings up issues, concerns, joys, passions around family, around childhood, around our memories of family from our childhood. It's really the realm of the heart, is the way I think of Cancer energy. And so it tends to put us deeply, almost immediately in touch with our emotional self. It also makes us start to desire and yearn for comfort, whether this is physical comforts like that cushy teddy bear or a nice soft blanket or a hug from a loved one. What is it that makes us feel comforted? And also, what is it that makes us feel safe and secure? Not what actually gives us safety, but what gives us that feeling. This is the realm of emotions. What is it that makes me feel safe and secure? And of course, who or what is providing that nurturance, that sense of safety? This is one of the reasons Cancer is often associated with the realm of parents, especially in Western society and more traditional families. It might be about our mom, our mothers, could be about mother figures, those who society expects to be our nurturer. And in fact, when I look at the sign of Cancer, I always think about which parent provided the nurturance for you. Was it your mom? Was it your dad? Did you have two moms? Did you have two dads? Who was it that actually did that primary role? So often in the family, there's somebody whose primary role is the breadwinner to provide the financial safety. And then by default or by choice, the other parent tends to be more of the nurturer. Or maybe you had a single parent household where you had one parent doing double duty. The other thing to consider, I think, with the sign of Cancer is which parent did you expect or want to give you nurturance? These can be very significant when we're dealing with any kind of Cancer energy, such as a new moon. It is also not only the realm of the heart, but it is a sign that is ruled by the moon, which means it is the realm of our unconscious, especially unconscious habits that go way back. Can be things that come up. These can be good habits, how we nurture ourselves, or these could be the bad habits we want to break, such as how we maybe miss the mark and don't nurture ourselves. A lot of times, issues with food, since food is commonly used as a form of love and a form of nurturance, can be associated here. And being so connected to the moon, I would say memories, emotions, yet again. So we have the emotional component of it's the realm of the heart. We have the emotional component being ruled by the moon. So this is like double emotions, if you will. This is a water sign where everything wants to flow, everything wants to come out and to be shared. It is really about the soul. If we think of the sun as being your spirit, your higher self, the part of you that decided to incarnate, then this is the soul, who I am now in this body. So my spirit plus my body, my memory, my emotions, the entire package, if you will. This is probably one of the reasons, if you put all this together, that we find the month when The sun is in the sign of Cancer, often associated in many cultures, many countries. It is a time for gatherings, especially gatherings with family or with community, gatherings around food. This is a time of taking picnics. Of here in the States, we'll find there's a lot of family reunions that are happening. In fact, the 4th of July, the birth of our country, to some astrologers, it's the birth chart of our country. That's a topic for another episode because there could be more than one. But if you think about the 4th of July being the day we celebrate the birth of our country, falls while the sun is in Cancer. This is a wonderful time for play, for taking a family vacation, going to the beach, going to a river, being near water. It is a time to embrace our inner child. Often people write or talk or dream about those lazy days of summer, laying on a blanket, staring at the clouds. I know that many of us don't always get time for that, but that is still sometimes the ideal, the dream of what people want to do at this time of year. It's also a great time to do a refresh on your home, on your garden. What is happening at your home? Where is your hearth? What is it that feeds your soul? It might be taking time to curl up with the cat in a good book. It might be rolling up your sleeves, pulling out the tools, and digging up a new garden bed in the backyard. We all do this in different ways, but it's about what gives you a feeling of home, of family, of safety, of nourishment, of comfort, of joy. And who are the people that we want to be doing this time, this work, this pleasure, this joy with? Also, since it's a new moon, as with any of our other monthly new moons, this is a great time to do some divination. It is an amazing time to do any type of healing work on the body, what is often referred to as somatic body work, taking things in, letting things go, talking to our body, taking a bath, feeling the energy. What does our body want to tell us? Where are we holding tension? Soaking our feet. Anything involving water, since Cancer is a water sign, can be very healing and releasing during this new moon energy. And with new moons, this is a transition point, just as full moons are, right? We are literally ending the waning cycle of the moon getting smaller every day, and we are entering at the same time, we are entering the waxing cycle of the moon growing every day. So we are betwixt and between these 2 points. We have a foot in each. So this could be a time to figure out, what do I need to be bringing in? Asking our body for wisdom or spirit for wisdom through divinations or things of that nature. This could be a time of releasing, of what do I need to let go? Or it could be a time in which we're doing a little bit of both. And remember that the new moon energy isn't just the moment that we have that perfect conjunction between the sun and the moon. This is an energy that will last and linger for a while until the moon has moved further away and enters a crescent phase. So if that hasn't made you feel all ready to curl up and nurture yourself, let's talk a bit about the Sabian symbol for this particular lunation. Our moon is going to be at just past 14 degrees of Cancer, which means we're looking at the Sabian symbol of 15 Cancer. And this symbol is a group of people who have overeaten and enjoyed it. Yes, let's not forget, and enjoyed it. This brings up ideas such as the overdoing component of energy, of wanting to luxuriate in this feeling of pleasure, of safety. So, overindulging, overextending, overcommitting, overspending, fill in the blank, whatever we're doing in abundance of, we may be taking that idea of abundance to an extreme if we're not careful. And yet we're enjoying it, even if we are. There's this idea of pleasure and pleasure seeking in community, right? Not just by myself. I'm not hibernating at home eating the pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream, which, don't get me wrong, can bring me a lot of pleasure. But this is about, what am I doing together with others? This is about, we're bringing our food and having that group picnic. We're meeting at a friend's house and having that social time. I get the feeling with this idea of overeating, enjoying it, and being in a group just makes me think about the post-Thanksgiving feast that happens a lot here in the States. After Thanksgiving, one of the most commonly eaten foods at the dinner table is turkey, which of course releases chemicals in our body, which makes us just want to sleep. It's part of the natural process. And that feeling of, I've been with people, I've eaten, we're just ready to take a nap, and that feeling satiated both physically and emotionally. And so if you think about the perfect Thanksgiving meal or that perfect family reunion or that idealized what happens when I bring the people I love who nurture my soul together and we commune. In the pagan communities, this might be very indicative of a Lammas or Lunasa celebration that we're having on August 1st. Like this energy of, oh, we're together. And oh, I feel so good. And there's nothing else that I want. I couldn't eat another morsel if I tried. I am fully grounded, satiated, present, here, loved. And let's not forget that in so many of our Western cultures, food is love. So those kind of feelings come up for me. It's important, I think, with the Sabian symbol to remember the idea that to have a moment where we've overindulged is fine. To continue overindulging could be a shadow side, could be some issues we need to face. In other words, what happens when that moment is over? Am I going to stop, do some exercise, take a day before I go dive in for seconds or thirds before we, in my family, we have it a big meal, then we would stop, do the dishes, take a walk, come back, make coffee, and then it was time for dessert. That idea of having a pause to appreciate that feeling overly full, but not to continue indulging, not to move from indulgence into gluttony, if you will. And so this could be saying that on the one hand, this new moon is reminding us that we all have the right as people, as humans, to enjoy life. And at the same time, it can put us into this falling prey, falling victim to societies, and especially the commercialization of our societies need to either be classified as a person who has or a person who has not. Are we operating from scarcity? Are we operating from privilege? Are we caught up in that cycle in some way? I hope not. I'm hoping that many of us, you included as our viewers, that we're all feeling a bit of this love, nurtured fullness with this energy. All right, so now that we've settled in to Cancerian new moon energies and we've thought about the Sabian symbol, let's take a look at that chart again. And especially, let's start off by looking at what are some of the lunar aspects. And then we'll talk about some of the other aspects and start unpacking what all that might mean. Give me a second. I'm going to pull the chart right back up. So here's our chart again. I've drawn in some lines to indicate what are some of the aspects we might be looking at. The first thing of note that kind of jumps off the page is the fact that not only do we have the sun and the moon hanging out at 14 degrees of Cancer, but we also have Venus close by at 22 degrees. So we have a nice little multiple conjunction happening here in the sign of Cancer. On the harmonious side of contacts, we have a lovely sextile happening with Mars. Mars is currently at this lunation, will be at 19 degrees of Taurus. And so we have some nice supportive contact happening there. And we also have a beautiful trine happening between the Cancer energies and that Saturn in watery Pisces at 19 degrees. So we have harmonious aspects happening to both of the traditional malefics of Mars and Saturn, which feels very supportive. Also, if you work with asteroids, we could plug Juno, who's currently in the sign of Virgo over here, who's making a beautiful trine with that Mars and hence also making a sextile to our lunar planets. So we have harmonious aspects of a sextile and a trine happening to the two traditional malefics of Mars and Saturn, which feels really supportive. In fact, just hours after the new moon, I believe it will be here in the States, it'll be around 3 a.m. the following morning. That moon, as it moves along, will make its exact trine at 19 degrees of Cancer to that 19 degrees Pisces Saturn. Lovely energy happening throughout that day and the following day. Now, let's talk about some of the challenges. And the first one is the fact that there's a square happening to the nodal axis, or you could say a T square since we have a north and south node energy in Aries and Libra, which at 10 degrees is close enough to be within orb and putting some pressure on that new moon. We also have a square happening between the sun and the moon to Chiron. Chiron is a little further away by degree than those nodes are. It is at, pardon me, it is at 23 degrees of Aries. So it's still making that square. In fact, it's pretty close and pretty tight to Venus. I mentioned that Venus is conjunct the sun and the moon, but it's a little further along at 22. So it's making a pretty tight square, whereas the sun and the moon are making maybe a mid-size square. And again, if we are working with asteroids up here in Capricorn, we actually have the asteroid Ceres currently retrograde and making an exact 14-degree opposition. So if we plug her in, we have not only a T square with the nodes, but we have a grand cross of the Cancer energy of the moon, sun, and Venus opposite the Capricorn of Ceres, all putting pressure and squaring the North Node and Chiron in Aries, the South Node in Libra, and really close to the South Node in Libra, within a degree away of that, is the point Black Moon Lilith as well. So there's a lot to unpack as we look at this particular lunation. Before we dive into that, though, I want to point out a few things not involving the sun and the moon that are happening within the chart. One is that we have a really well-placed Jupiter at the moment. Jupiter is currently transiting through the sign of Gemini, and on this new moon, it is making either a trine or a sextile to the nodal axis, to the north and the south node, and it is also making a lovely sextile from its placement in Gemini to Mercury over here in Leo. No hard aspects and a lot of support happening. We also see similarly with the planet Mars that it has no hard aspects. In fact, everything is going to be a sextile or a conjunction. We have a wide orb conjunction with Uranus. We have a beautiful sextile to all that Cancerian energy. And in fact, Mars at 19 degrees of Taurus is making an exact partile sextile to that Saturn that we were talking about. So once again, we have harmonious aspects between the new moon energies to Saturn and Mars, and then we have a harmonious aspect very tight between Mars and Saturn themselves. So overall, it feels like the energies are trying to push us in a more positive direction as best they could. And that so makes me wish that Anne and Monica were with us today, because as I'm talking and espousing all the positive energy flowing here, I can't help but wonder what shadows or what other thoughts they would have about all these contexts. And Monica, if when you're listening, please put your ideas, your thoughts about some of this, especially any of the challenges that might be coming up with this. Put your thoughts in the comments so the rest of us can read and review. All right, let me close out the chart and we'll start unpacking things. So, my top 3 things that I would look at with all that energy that's happening. 1, this chart is heavy in water. Did you catch that we have not only 3 planets, the moon, the sun, and Venus in Cancer, we also had Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So 5 out of our 10 possible planet placements all in water. And amongst that, we have a lot happening with that Saturn. So as I mentioned before, Saturn just went retrograde just days before this new moon, and there are no hard aspects hitting Saturn in this chart, which is surprising and lovely. The primary thing we see is that Saturn is making a beautiful trine. Saturn in Pisces is making a beautiful trine to all that Cancerian energy, to the moon, to the sun, and to Venus. So the fact that Saturn can often represent authority figures, can represent father figures, or our actual fathers or father line. And the fact that Cancer is so often about home family is saying to me that this is a good time if we need to spend some bonding time with those father figures. This could be a good time if we need to do some healing or releasing old wounds around not feeling accepted, loved, not feeling emotionally safe and secure. And this could be towards not only the individuals who raised us, but this could be towards the broader idea of father figures as society, as the patriarchy. Something else that I think is of interest is the fact that Venus is here. And so not only is this the energy of our conscious sun and unconscious moon, but there's also about what is going on with relationships. And of course, Saturn being about where and when we take responsibility or choose not to. This could be saying that it's time. I get the sense that this is not necessarily the walls come crumbling down kind of energy. This is much more soft and supportive and gentle. It is time. We now know that it is time for us to step up to the mark, to do more for our partners, to take more responsibility. Maybe we already have a lot and it's just time to take more, to be the nurturer instead of being the one who needs to be nurtured. If we are going to have a group of people eating too much food, who's cooking the food? Who's doing the dishes? Who's organizing the event? To use our Sabian symbol as a metaphor. So sometimes there's work that has to happen before we're able to indulge in those pleasures. And this may just be saying that time is now here. And remember, Saturn rules time. So this could be something about looking at the cycles, planning out maybe it isn't the today or this weekend that we're wanting to have that social time, that family time, that nurturing time. Maybe it's about relooking at our calendars and putting a little more time for joy, for pleasure, for play into our life. There's also that lovely sextile happening between Saturn and Mars. And I guess you could say, if you use wide orbs, also with Uranus there. So the Mars Saturn sextile is interesting because they are traditionally considered the malefics. They don't always play well with others, you might say. And here they're in this harmonious contact. So I feel like there's something about Mars and Taurus can be challenging, right? We've been feeling this for a while now as it's transiting through. It can be challenging in that Mars wants to take action. I'm ready to do. Taurus likes to move slowly and methodically. And so sometimes we may be feeling as if life isn't moving fast enough, or life is moving so fast, I'm not getting to do the things I want to do. My pleasures aren't happening fast enough. In some way, shape, or form, there's usually a push pull we're having between in our day to day life, what happens with us using the gas pedal and the brake pedal, the stop and the go. The demands of the outer world might be depleting all of my energy. I just find that Mars and Taurus, it's beautiful at the end. We usually have a wonderful end result of some project or something we've accomplished, but getting there, we may feel like our inner 2-year-old has become the petulant child. If I want to go now, I want to move faster. Of course, if we're able to move on things that are of our choosing, our own idea, and we're able to take action without hitting obstacles, then it can feel really good, right? It's like a nice, gentle moving down the hill. It feels great. Often that's not the case in life, but now here we have a beautiful sextile with Saturn. So this could be saying that the responsibilities I have are not impeding my energy. The tasks I have to accomplish maybe are putting me on track with the things I want to be doing, where I want to be putting my energy. That perhaps as I'm taking care of responsibilities and I'm able to start checking off the check boxes that have been waiting too long to get completed, I'm now feeling that sense of completion and therefore able to engage my energy on some of the things I want to be doing. And remember that Taurus is a sign that is all about pleasure, especially physical pleasure, eating, being at the beach, luxuriating. So this could be saying, I'm able to finally take that vacation, do that party, do the thing that I have been putting off because of all the responsibilities of Saturn that I've been contending with or dealing with. How the fact that we have Uranus here means this may not necessarily be the planned vacation. This could be saying that something is happening unexpectedly where now there's an opportunity for us to, and I say opportunity because Jupiter is so well placed, we may be getting opportunities out of the box, out of the blue, unexpectedly, where we're syncing up. Perhaps that energy that I mentioned with Venus about wanting to be with our partner, maybe our schedules finally synced up. We're able to have the same night or day or week free. So there's something here about the wanting to move, wanting to take action. Perhaps the structure in our life is finally making it possible for us to do that. Second thing I want to look at is a little simpler. It's the fact that we have so many planets entering the sign of Leo, right? I mentioned that we're going to have Mercury, we're going to have Venus, we're going to have the sun, boom, kind of one after the other. And as each of them enter the sign of Leo, Leo, of course, is opposite Aquarius. Aquarius, 1 degree Aquarius, is where Pluto has been hanging out for some time now up in the sky. So that means that every time one of them enters, there's that momentary opposition, that momentary, we have to stop, take stock, that momentary shudder of tension. And oppositions, generally speaking, are tensions that are apparent, that are easy to see in our life, and therefore we're able to work on them. They don't involve as much shadow necessarily as squares might. Of course, they also can bring up a lot of projection if there is something that is a trigger for us, a point of tension in our lives, and we don't want to look at it, or we've historically avoided it or buried it, then these could be moments where, oh, Mercury is opposite. Who is our sibling, biological or spiritual, that we are having a bit of a power struggle with? What is the words, the communications that are spoken or unspoken that are making it difficult for us to stand in our own authenticity, right? We could have that jolt for a moment, that awareness, followed by Venus. What are the relationships that are doing the same thing? What are the desires I have, whether those desires are met or they're desires that are unmet that I need to address and I need to look at because I'm disempowered. I'm not standing in my place of authenticity. I am allowing somebody else to run roughshod or to undermine, or people are just sapping my power. This could be a moment when everyone seems to need something from me. But what about what I need from myself? And then, of course, the annual suns entering into Leo, a time when we are meant to shine and we want to have joy, we want to play and party. And before we can do all that, there is going to be that momentary, oh, but who is stopping me from shining my light? How does shining my light create? How does that visibility, how does that playful side of me create some tension in the world, in my world? Is it with a project? Is it with a person? What is it where I'm not able to fully shine and at the same time feel I'm being true to myself? Or because of the Aquarius side, or maybe I'm shining, but I feel very alone and isolated. Maybe when I shine, I'm feeling judged and somehow set apart. I don't feel that I belong and that I'm part of my community. So many ways this energy could flow, but just notice those dates on your calendar because these could be times where we're having a sudden awakening or wake up call about an issue we hadn't been paying attention to that's coming up for us to revisit. And then the last thing, the big thing, is all that tension, right? Those oppositions, the squares, the grand cross. So let's break that out a little bit. The first thing that is of note, I believe, is the fact that the sun, the moon, and Venus are all caught up in a T square with the nodal axis. They're making a square to the north and the south node. Now, we've talked about the north and south node a lot on this podcast, and I'm sure we will continue to do. It's very karmic points. These have a lot to do with where you want to be heading in life, the North Node. What is the next step on my journey, the North Node? What is it that I know I want to do or I feel called to do, but it doesn't feel comfortable? It doesn't feel familiar. There's a bit of feeling a little perhaps tentative about exactly how do I do this. That's also the North Node. And of course, that North Node energy is all wrapped up in Aries. So it's all about me. What do I want to do? What is my next step? Where do I stand? And perhaps do I stand alone? What is it that I need to break free, to move forward? Where do I need to perhaps embrace some spontaneity? We could take all of the different keywords for Aries and plug them in with this idea, this lens, that this is something new and different and a little uncomfortable. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the South Node in Libra. And this could be bringing up, oh my gosh, what about others? What do others need from me? What do I need to do for others? What do others take from me, willingly or unwillingly? And that South Node is very close to Black Moon Lilith, a point in the sky that can represent our hidden, our unconscious angers, pain, trauma, often not only our own, but what we see or know unconsciously that others have experienced. Black Moon Lilith energy it tends to be specifically tied up with women's themes, women's issues as well. So this could be I have seen the women in my family repeatedly caught up in some cycle that doesn't feel loving and supportive. I have seen women in the world be treated poorly. I have seen the misogyny of society hold back or put down women. So if you are somebody who identifies as female, this could be something that you are dealing with and also feel connected to a larger group who have also suffered the same battle. Or if you're somebody who identifies as male, this could be something that you bear witness to and feel passionate about. We still feel tuned into anger that this should not be. Now, that doesn't mean everything about Black Moon Lilith is always anger and rage, but due to the fact that our society likes to teach us to hold back on those things, that can often be something that stands out when she's active. Another thing that Black Moon Lilith can be about is where do you draw the line? Where do you say no more? Enough is enough. Because if I do any more, if I play by your rules, whatever those rules are, good or bad, if I do that, then I'm not being true to myself. At some point in almost every version of Lilith in the mythologies that exist, there was a point where everyone said to her, we'll let you be a part of our group if you play by our rules. And every time she said, no, that is just asking too much. And the consequence of that was feeling ostracized, was feeling a bit abandoned, was feeling like she had to go wander on her own. But she would rather wander on her own and risk being demonized than to be accepted and to belong, not being true to herself. So again, we have sort of an echo of that Pluto and Aquarius kind of theme happening over here. And since all this energy is in Libra, I think a lot of this has to do with some of the anger we may have towards ourselves about what we allow or don't allow in regards to our interactions with others. Are we being isolated when we want to be part of that group that is overindulging, but it's hard to when we feel alone? Or are we giving so much energy to the needs of others that we're not making the time we need to nurture and sustain ourselves? And since all of this energy is creating tension on this Cancerian moment, this could be saying that those lovely reunions and picnics and social gatherings may not be 100% smooth. There could be a moment here or there where there's a sudden pop. Thank you, Uranus. A sudden pop of energy about something we need to address or remember or revisit. And that perhaps the reminder here is we all have to take responsibility. Thank you, Saturn, for nurturing ourselves. We can't get all of the nurturance, all of the safety, all of the security we want in life from something out there, be it money, be it a person, be it a loved one. We have to be able to parent ourselves and give that to ourselves too. So, this could be a reminder if that is something that is a theme. Again, look to your charts and see where the nodes currently in Aries and Aries and Libra. Where are they sitting in your chart? The house that they are occupying is going to tell you a lot about the story, the themes that are happening for you this month. And lastly, I just want to mention that I like to work with the asteroid Ceres. And so since she's sitting opposite the sun and the moon at the exact same degree, at 14 degrees of Capricorn, this takes us right back to that idea of responsibility, duty. But with Ceres, there's often a tie-in or a theme of what I learned from my mother or mother figures. What was it that either I experienced with them or I witnessed, or what was the message, whether it was intentionally given or not, that I took away? And what was it about responsibility? What was it about duty? Or another thing that can happen with Capricorn is it could also be about where do I feel a disconnect? Where do I feel a need to shut down, to self protect? Where am I putting up walls? Are the walls between me and those nurturing mother figures? Is that wall between me and my inner mother? Is that wall about I don't want to receive? Maybe we're very nurturing towards others, but are we willing to receive that nurturance? Is there a flow? Often, when planets are in or asteroids are in the sign of Capricorn, things tend to have a one way direction. We're so focused on what we need to do, how we can deliver, how we can provide for, that we're not necessarily willing to make the time to drop our guard to receive. We're busy building a healthy foundation for ourselves or our career or for others. But that doesn't mean we're taking time to love and nurture and satiate ourselves. There's a tendency to delay the gratification. So, what is it about nurturance, about your inner self parent, mother side? Perhaps you think about this in terms of divine feminine as a term that's commonly used. What is going on where there's a wall dividing you from that? And perhaps this is the time to have the light of consciousness, thank you, Sun, giving us that aha moment so we can get in touch with what emotions are triggering or motivating us to stay in that loop. It's time to maybe break an unhealthy habit there. All right, those are the top three that I would talk about. And as always, we like to wrap up with what are the tips and tricks for the month? And I'm going to give you three because normally we only do one each. But since Anne and Monica aren't here, I'm going to give you three. And I'm going to use my divination to try and think of what is something they might suggest. I think if Monica was here, she might suggest why don't you grab your copy of the Astro Luna journal, amazing journal that she created. If you don't have a copy, go on Amazon, purchase your copy, and go to the section on the new moon in Cancer. Follow those journal prompts and see what that brings up for you. I'm not sure what Anne would say, but I have a hunch it might be something akin to take some time to embrace all this water. Go to the beach, go to a body of water, a lake, a river. Take a soak in the bathtub, soak your feet, get a spray mister, enjoy the energy of water and allow water to help you be open to receptivity. And my personal favorite every year when we have that annular new moon in Cancer kicking off a lunar month, I like to use that as a time to nest. I want to be at home. I don't want to be out in the world. I want to be at home. I want to work on refurbishing something in the house, decorating. I might even do a little cleaning due to the fact that I have so much Virgo, but it's because I choose to, not because I have to. What is it that gives me that sense of nurturance, of home, of comfort? Find your spiritual hearth within your home and take some time to be there. So it might be curling up with a book, might be making yourself a cup of hot tea, it might be sitting out in the backyard enjoying your beautiful garden or the view. It could be inviting some people over into your home, but say take some time to nest in whatever way you do. If you do that over the course of this particular weekend, you may find yourself rejuvenated on the other side and ready to tackle all the excitement that summer has to offer. All right, those are my thoughts and ideas. I so appreciate all of you for being here and staying with us. Please put your thoughts and ideas in the comments below if you're following us on YouTube. If you are listening via podcast, we so appreciate you being a follower. And if you would be willing to either review or rate this episode It really helps us. It helps other people to find us and to become part of the larger community so we can keep the conversation going. Until the 21st, when we have our full moon in Capricorn, I wish you lots of love, nurturance, support, comfort, family, and a little bit of the overeating and enjoying it. Have a good couple weeks. Thank you for joining us in this week's AstroChat. We hope that you enjoyed the discussion and would love to hear about anything that resonated with you. Keep the conversation going by posting shareable content on our Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube pages. You can also email us at astrochatpodcast@gmail.com. AstroChat is uploaded every 2 weeks on the Saturday before each new and full moon. Look for us on your favorite podcast platform as well as on YouTube. You can support AstroChat and receive exclusive content by donating on our Patreon page. We look forward to chatting with you all again at the next lunation of the moon.